Hi Booktube! I'm here today to talk about one of my projects for 2021. And this is actually a project that I started back in June of this year and have decided to carry forth. So in June, well, I read more than one book, but after that I decided at least one book a month that I'm going to be reading from that point forward is going to be by a Black author. And so I have done that throughout 2020, and that's been great, and I want to continue that with 2021. And so I've chosen out the 12 books that I want to read next year, and I thought I'd share them with you as a kind of recommendation as well, even though I haven't finished these books, and I don't know if they're going to be good or not, but they're books that have piqued my interest, and that I have on my shelf that I'd like to read. So, I'm doing them in the month order that I'm going to read them in, hopefully. So in January, I plan to read George and Rue by George Elliot Clarke. He is a Caribbean-Canadian author. This is a historical fiction based on a real event in Canadian history of two brothers, George and Rufus, who beat a taxi driver to death in New Brunswick and were hung for it. And this is George Elliot Clarke kind of looking for a motive for their actions. Looking at why they did this thing, but it's not nonfiction, it's fiction. Yeah, so that sounded really interesting, like getting some Canadian history in there, you know, getting this really interesting exploration of like this action of like murder and why it was done. Sounds really cool. And then in February we have another Canadian author, Dionne Brand, and this book is called Theory. And this is about a narrator working on her thesis, or on their thesis. The gender of the narrator is not revealed on the back cover, so there's that. So a narrator working on their thesis, and the effects three different lovers have on it. So they're working on their PhD, I believe, and these three people come in and out of their lives and what effect they have on this, I guess, theory. March. Oh, okay, so I actually this is an author that I've read another book by and want to read more books by, and it's a new release from 2020, and that is The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. And I really enjoyed Freshwater by her this year, and I would like to try another one by her. And so this is the story of Vivek Oji, and begins actually with him showing up dead on his mother's doorstep, which I think is an interesting way to, you know, kill off your main character in like the first few pages, I guess. Yeah, I'll be reading that one in March. In April, I plan to read The Good Lord Bird by James McBride, and this was actually made into a movie, and I watched the trailer and it looked kind of interesting, and then I decided to read the book before going into the movie. It's about a young slave who gets wrapped up with an abolitionist leader leading up to the Civil War in the States. So we got like Canadian stuff, and then I don't know where the death of Vivek Oji takes place, but I believe Akwaeke is Nigerian and Tamil, so either in India or Nigeria. And then we go to the United States. So I'm trying to get like a variety here. And yeah, I think there's also some stuff with gender, like the main character has to disguise themselves as female or as male. I'm a bit confused about that. But yeah, I'm sure the book will explain it. Then we have to go with a nonfiction, because I've got more into nonfiction this year and I want to continue that into next year, so I'll be reading Bad Feminist by Roxanne Gay. This will actually be my first thing that I've read by Roxanne Gay. I keep hearing a lot about her. She seems like a really fascinating person, someone I'd really like and get along with, and so I thought I'd read this book of essays that I have by her. And so this deals with intersectionality, which I'm really interested in, of feminism and racism. Essays commenting on the current state of feminism, about feeling like you're not a good feminist, based on, you know, stereotypes and stuff. So it sounds really quite interesting. Then we hop back to Canada, because I love my Canlit. And in June I'll be reading Any Known Blood by Lawrence Hill, who is a well-known Canadian author. He did The Book of Negroes, and what was the name of the other one? It was in Canada Reads, and it won. And don't ask me the title. I'm horrible with titles. I'll link that title down below. And this is Any Known Blood is about a generational story of a racially mixed family. So it's a man who's looking for help determining his own identity as a biracial man, and looking into his family's histories for those answers. It's a fiction, by the way. And I think it was made into a movie as well, or a limited series. In July, this is actually a book that one of my patients gave me, and I thought it would be interesting to pick up. I actually looked at the back, and Yahaya Baruwa, who is the author, actually went to the same university as I did, York University. So this is called Struggles of a Dreamer. It's about two men on very different paths. We follow a beggar on the streets of New York and the son of a farmer in a faraway land. That's how it's described. And it's the struggle between pursuing tradition or your own dreams. And then a book that's been all over BookTube recently, and all over the book world, because it was nominated for one of the big book prizes. I don't keep up with the book prizes, so I don't know which one it was nominated for, but I heard about it and it sounded interesting. So in August, I'll be reading Nervous Conditions by this intersects post-colonialism, feminism, class, racism. We follow Tambu and the woman and her family in 1960s, what was then called Rhodesia, which we now call Zimbabwe. So that sounds really interesting, learning more about historical fiction set in Africa, which I haven't, read much of or anything really, I think. Then in September, I'm finally going to read something by Gloria Naylor. She's one of the authors that just kept coming up on searches of Black authors that you need to read. And I'm going to read Mama Day by her. And this is a retelling of The Tempest, a play by Shakespeare. We follow the healer Mama Day and her niece Coco. I don't know why I wanted to say Cocoa. Coco. The Stark... and Coco is involved in this kind of like star-crossed love affair. So it sounds very kind of Shakespearean, but it's set in, I think, both the southern United States and in New York, I believe. I'm going off of memory there, so I may be wrong, but yeah. It sounds really interesting. In October, I'm trying to do a few spooky reads, but nothing too scary because I'm scared of cat. So I'll be reading The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. I read Slapboxing with Jesus this year and I really enjoyed it. That's a whole bunch of short stories by him. And they were more contemporary. So this will be interesting, reading this kind of like historical fiction. And it's this retelling of a Lovecraft story, incorporating magic, racism, horror into it, and I know a lot of people enjoyed it on BookTube from what I've heard, so I'll be diving into that. In November, I'll be reading American Street by Zoboi, and this is actually YA, so this is kind of like a step outside of my normal genre, or YA is not a genre, YA is like the age audience, so I'm stepping outside of usually what I read is adult fiction. So this is a YA. Anyways, it's about a Haitian immigrant to the United States as her mother is kind of detained, she is detained by immigration, and she has to go on her own now, this young girl, and live with her American family, and kind of like the differences, because like that family is a Black American family and she's Haitian, so seeing kind of like the different cultures and everything. And lastly, in December, I'll be reading Say You're One of Them by Uwem Akpan. These are short stories that take place all over Africa, with overarching themes with kind of poverty and violence. This was just a book I randomly stumbled upon in the thrift store, and it sounded quite interesting. The book cover was compelling, of this little girl running away, and I just thought, well, that will be like, interesting. I have a hit and miss thing with short stories, so but I've been enjoying them more this past year, so hopefully this one will stand up to expectations. So that's it. Those are the 12 books by Black authors I'll be reading in 2021. I'm gonna say right here, like, I'm not just planning on reading just 12 books by Black authors. I plan on reading more, but these were just the 12 that I wanted to focus on specifically. So yeah, that's it. Let me know if you have any other recommendations down below, and thank you for watching.